go. Hey, everybody. Welcome to today's live stream. I hope you can see and hear us together. Thank you for joining us today. I have Avi from Tech Me Out with me, and I dropped a link to his YouTube channel in the chat. So if you're watching the stream on my channel, you could find his URL there. By the way, that being said, we are streaming to both channels simultaneously on Quik Tech Solutions and on the Tech Me Out channel. I'm happy to have Avi here. Avi, welcome.
Thank you very much. I'm very excited to be here.
Yeah, this is going to be fun. We'll tell the folks a little bit about our story and our journey and what led us up to being here. But I do want to mention that this journey started as a result of a Facebook post. Avi manages 2 user groups on Facebook, actually 2 communities. He manages the Unify community and the Synology community group. Both great groups. So if you haven't checked them out, check them out. They're available on Facebook. And that's how we got started with this whole journey that's leading up to today's stream. And also, I want to mention that we've talked in the past, Avi and I. We've had several conversations, especially with another gentleman, which we call a friend, and that's Frank from WonderTech. So I know Frank can't be here today, but also check out Frank's channel, and I'll put a link to Frank's channel as well in the chat before we close out. But we've spoken several times, and we've gotten to know each other and become friends over, YouTube, which is really, really cool. And so, Avi, why don't you let the folks know what you were doing a couple of weeks ago when you posted that request on the Synology. I think it was the Synology user group.
Yeah.
And then I just happened to respond to you. So.
Okay. So can anyone hear me okay? If not, write a comment. I hope you guys can hear me okay. All right. So here's the story of how this developed into us now doing a joint live stream and talking about it. Because Synology is kind of a product that's very well known in the tech community, and I tend to think that I know a lot about Synology, and I know that Tony also. But I had a sort of a need or a use case. That running a YouTube channel, if you're not Linus Tactics, you don't have a studio and a team of editors and a team of content researchers. I edit my own videos, and I learned how to video edit out of tutorials on YouTube. That's the fact. So I had a friend saying, "Listen, I want to try something. Send me your raw files, and I will do the editing for a certain video for you, just to see if I'm getting the hang of it." And I said, "All right." I know that he's my friend, and I know he has a Synology box over, so I thought, great, we don't have to do it the primitive way of driving over with a USB and with an external USB drive. So I thought, listen, let's do it. I'll replicate my raw data to your Synology NAS, do whatever you want with it, and then send it back. So that's what led me to this, what has become a certain journey. I thought, well, you know what? We can do it over Synology Drive Sharesync. If you guys know Synology on DSM6, this was a separate application in the package center, Sharesync or something like that, where you keep 2 shares on 2 Synology devices in sync. But he wasn't using it, and I'm not using Synology Drive, so I thought, okay, let's do Snapshot Replication. And I know that out of past experience, in order to establish communication when the other NAS or the other destination server, whatever it is remote to you, is offsite, you need to do some port forwarding. Maybe on some Synology applications, you can use a quick connect a string or ID, but this wasn't the case in Snapshot Replication. So I started speedballing this, and he opened a port. He opened ports for me, created a user account for me. Everything was supposed to run very smoothly, and it didn't. And I started getting error messages. So then I start testing it with myself because I have a Synology in my primary location, and then I also have another Synology box over at my parents' house that I back up to. So I started experimenting with that, and it also didn't work out for me. I was getting error messages. I started experimenting and researching online, and something wasn't right. It was supposed to work because I also do, for example, hyper backup. If you guys are using Synology devices, you know that hyper backup is also a communication when you do it to a remote NAS. It's also your NAS writing data to a remote NAS. And that also is being established if it's not in an area where you have connectivity, a LAN connectivity or site-to-site VPN, which is basically LAN over WAN. You also need to port forward. In this case, it's a different port, but you open the port on the destination and then you can communicate over to it. So nothing out of the ordinary here, and yet it didn't work. Now, I know for a fact that if I use Synology Drive Sharesync, it's a small effort, almost no configuration because it can support Quick Connect ID, but something just irritated me that it doesn't work. And it's not rocket science. As I had a few sessions with Tony about it, and he said, listen, it's not rocket science. Why doesn't it work? Now I have to mention that Tony actually crashed the party here because he found out eventually what's going on, but we're going to save it lest we want you to really be with us in this journey. I told to Tony, listen, Tony, I'm really afraid going over on a live stream with this specific problem because I'm afraid someone from the participants will just enlighten us that we are missing something so stupid, so minor, that we will feel like complete jerks not seeing it. And we're supposed to be like, YouTubers, tech content creators, we're supposed to be know-it-alls. And how can that be? So I said, you know what? This is a good topic for a live stream, definitely, because we don't just want to approach users or viewers in an edited video. Listen, guys, here's what I'm doing. We have a problem. We want to share with our audiences. This is something I do very frequently in my Facebook groups. So I thought, yeah, this was a great topic for a live stream, and we will be happy to receive insights from the audience. But if someone points out something so stupid and minor, I'm going to bang my head against the wall or something. So we got to talking, and you remember, Tony, we tried. I opened ports for you on my NAS. I created a user account for you on my NAS, and then we tried it, and then it didn't work as well. And then we tried the other way around. It didn't work as well. Something was going on that kept two, I'm sorry, quotes, experts banging or poking at it continuously and not finding out what's preventing this to just work. And we went into the advanced settings and we changed everything that we were able to change. We even played around not only with the destination settings but with the source settings, and we changed from dynamic DNS to IP addresses. So we really poked at it from every each way, and we always got to this annoying error message. And then we tried just to see the exact opposite of how easy it is with Synology Drive Sharesync. It's just downloading the package, creating a shared folder if you don't have one already, enabling it as a team folder in Synology Drive Admin Center, and then running the Synology Drive Sharesync wizard with Quick Connect ID, and it just bang, it works.
Right. So that said, let me show them a little bit about what we were doing during the two test calls that we had previously, and I'll show them some of the screens. Now, I'm obviously not going to recreate the task. I would love to live, but we're dealing with two public IP addresses or two public my public IP and your DDNS. So part of it we can't show, but I'm going to switch over now real quick to this screen here. I'm just got to drag it in real quick. Okay.
Tony, you mind if I just address some of the questions in the chat?
Oh, sure. Hold on one second. Let me bring you back. There you go.
So first of all, guys, just so you would know, by the way, I would love it if you can comment in the chat if you already heard or already subscribed to my channel. That will be great to know. I'm from Israel, and I don't play guitar. All right, that's the first few things I can tell you.
Joe had asked that in my chat, so I see he went over to yours. Good.
No, I opened another tab, muted because I knew that I don't want to miss questions.
Gotcha. Cool. I raised up your volume a little bit, so we should be good there.
All right.
Awesome. All right. So I guess while we're doing this, let me address a couple of the chats as well, just to say hey. All right. Got to put my glasses on for this one. So Jason Palmer, welcome to the chat. Thank you for being here. I usually do put the chat on the screen. But again, for this setup for me today, bringing Avi in through Google Meet is kind of different from my normal setup. So I just didn't have all the time in the world this week to prepare for it. So I do apologize, but I'll just read through and welcome the folks who are here. Again, David Grisho, thank you for being here. Jason Palmer, appreciate you being here. Thank you so much. Controlling Technologies, that's Joe over at Controlling Technologies. Joe, thank you for being here. I appreciate it. DJ Ware is here as well. DJ has a channel, as does Joe. So I'll drop both of those channels down in my chat too, a little later on before we close. And I think I got everybody. So let me jump back over to this other screen and show you a little bit about what Avi was talking about and what we were trying to do. Okay, so here we are in Synology Snapshot Replication, and you can see here that we finally did get a successful sync. And again, we're over 6,000 miles apart, right? I'm here in North Carolina, Avi's in Israel, and we kept running into that stumbling block. So, but you can see here the test sync was successful. The last successful run was run 14 hours ago, etc. I could show you a little bit of the info. You can see again here, success from, this is my NAS on the left, this is his on the right. So yes, we did finally get that to work. However, what we were running into, let me click on create a new task, and you can see here, we're just going to go ahead and hit the start button. Obviously you want to click on remote from the source and click next. And then here, again, I'm not going to do this live because of the public IP address issue, but I dropped in Avi's public IP or his DDNS address that he gave me. He created a user account on his NAS for me. And then we used encrypted settings and then other advanced settings. For the destination server, again, it pulled from the last screen his DDNS address. And then once the address is in there, these two fields become available to you. They're grayed out right now because there's nothing here, but he's using DSM login on port 8001. So I switched this from 5001 to 8001 and we clicked OK. Well, I got to cancel out of that one for now. And every time we tried this process, we kept getting this error message here. And as you can see, it says the destination server failed to connect to this server. And the idea here is, I'm going to bring us back, Avi, together.
Mm-hmm.
Because I don't know how much, if you want me to just divulge the solution just yet, but that was the error message that we were getting. Well, we tried different things. We were with the different ports and changing this and changing that. The error message did vary, but this was the most recent error message that I showed you. Some of the messages just basically failed out outright and said you can't authenticate to the remote server. But that's when we were playing, trying and testing different things. But then we got this message last night. You want me to go at this point, Avi? Is it okay?
I'm just going to point out before you do is
Sure.
that we both work in tech. I also work in tech in my day job, so we know networking. We know our Synology. We were kind of methodical about it. We also have past experiences in general, not just Synology. Every other application out there uses the same logic when you need to connect somewhere remotely. Ports need to be open for it. If it's a Synology or an online game, you need to open ports if you want to establish a connection. So we were poking at it quite a while, not getting anywhere. We were poking at Synology Drive Sharesync and we got it working almost immediately. So at this point, I was ready, to. I even feel bad saying I was ready to move forward. I was ready to just look for other solution or just use a Synology Drive Sharesync. But then you said, "Listen, Avi, just what? Remind me your DDNS again and the user account. I want to try one more thing." And then.
Yep. And it's funny too, because I just got a message from Joe and he said, well, in the error message you showed, it said port 5001, not port 8001. And Joe, you're thinking in the same terms that Avi and I were thinking the whole time we could not get it to work. And I guess I'll share that now with you. So I'm going to bring that message back up on the screen one more time so we could really absorb it and see what it's saying. But first of all, well, yeah, let me do that and then I'll go from there. So let me bring this over. All right. The key here is it says the destination server failed to connect to this server. This server and this port number being the source NAS, my NAS, not Avi's. Avi's NAS is on port 8001. My DSM is running on port 5001. Look at the message again. The destination server failed to connect to this server. What that said to me, let me come back to the two of us again. What that said to me late last night was, I am authenticating to Avi's remote server. Avi's remote server is trying to make a communication back to my server, and it's hitting a block at the firewall. My firewall is preventing it. Now, before I say anything else, again, Avi said, we both do a lot with Synology. We both work tech for a living. I'm more part-time. I think, Avi, you do this full-time, right? Okay.
Right.
When you think snapshot replication or hyper backup to another NAS, you're thinking one way, right? So you're thinking, in this case with Avi, I'm thinking I'm replicating a folder from my NAS to his NAS. So in that other screen that I showed you, when I put in his public DDNS and the username and password he created for me, I'm thinking I authenticate to his NAS, or we're both thinking I authenticate to his NAS and we're good to go. We're not fully understanding what the two-way communication, why it's required. So the end result being, in order to get this to work, I had to put in the public IP address of my NAS. Let me go back to that other screen for a second. If you guys can see this, let me go full screen. Under advanced setting, if you click on source, now you're configuring the source server here, and under auto detect, I don't know if you could see, but that's my internal IP address. And right here, it requires the public IP address of my NAS, of the source NAS. Once I did that and entered port forwarding into the mix on my router, so port forwarding has to occur on both sides, on the remote router and on the source router. and you have to use public IP addresses when setting up replication over the internet. And once we did that, it worked. And it was just one of those things where it's a simple fix. I've seen in my research, I was digging last night because I said to Avi earlier today, I just hate to be stumped. I mean, probably like that's like most of us out there who are techies. We hate to be stumped. So I was digging. And even on going through forums, I saw a lot of forums that people were saying, can't get Synology replication, snapshot replication to work over the internet. No problem on the local network, but can't get it to happen over the internet. And it's when I read that message and I said, I am authenticating successfully. It's not coming back the other way. And once we did that, once I used the public IP and enabled port forwarding for the 2 ports on my router. Now, I had to enable port forwarding for port 5001 and 5566. On Avi's end, he had to port forward 8001 because his NAS is using 8001 for authentication and 5566 for the shared folder. So that was pretty much it in a nutshell, and it worked. And I think by the time I figured it out, he was half asleep last night, and I emailed him and I said, hey, you're not going to believe this, but I'm in. And it worked. And I sent him, I know you're probably asleep, but I sent him a screenshot of the successful replication. And yeah, so in order to create that,
I think Tony, we need a moment to linger on that, because the very fact that you needed to open ports on your side just for the back communication to be able to reach you is something that I think that something went wrong in the whole process of designing this product or application on Synology's side, because this is not playing by any rules of any tech or any sport, any rule set. It doesn't make sense. Moreover, when you're using Synology snapshot replication, you're replicating to a destination, and that destination is the folder reaches that destination, it becomes read-only. So no real two-way communication is really needed. Only one side is writing to the other side. So the very fact they need this two-way open ports, for me, by the way, as you said, it really downplays the entire application. And if you're not just opening port forwarding to a specific IP, which is yours on both sides, it really becomes unviable in terms of security. But it doesn't make sense in regards to the rule set that we are all playing here in the tech world. It doesn't make sense, and it's not needed on any other Synology application when you need communication remotely. I think that even if I was reading this error message for a good 30 minutes and not doing anything else, I think that it would never still occur to me that you need to open ports on the destination side. By the way, this only shows you guys how methodical and professional Tony is to really read an error message and understand it the way it's supposed to be understood. I think that I would never even come to think about this even being an option as a troubleshooting step. For me, this really, I tend to think of Synology as one of these higher class vendors that really gives you a complete solution that is very well designed, both hardware and software. And this really it damages my image of Synology. Moreover, there might be a use case for using Synology snapshot replication. There might be, but there is no. Looking at it right now, there's no real use or justification to use it and not use a Synology Drive Sharesync. It really blows my mind. I think that I'm not the only one.
Well, it's interesting. I'm just looking at my chat, and Jason Palmer, Joe from Controlling, DJ Ware, they bring up good points that we were discussing earlier today we had a short call this morning once Avi woke up and I woke up he was like, I'm chomping at the bits. What did you do? And so we had a quick call to catch up. And the part that is the mystery, and DJ Ware brings it out here and says, is this actually doing two-way replication? And no, it's not.
It's not.
This is a one-way replication, which that's why it goes against what we are typically accustomed to. And I don't understand. I maybe Avi does, and he can share it. I don't understand the reason for the two-way communication, why his remote NAS was trying to open a session and contact my NAS. In fact, I'll tell you what, when we were troubleshooting and testing in the previous two calls last week and yesterday, we kept saying the documentation is saying use the public IP address for the source NAS. And we both said that really shouldn't matter. This is me replicating to him. Why does it want my public IP to get to my NAS?
And by the way, Synology documentation maybe said to use the public IP. They never said nowhere that you need to open ports also on the source.
Right. So it kind of just clicked when I saw the message. This is why they were saying we need to use the public IP. And then obviously from having basic networking knowledge, if you're going to use the public IP to get to an internal server, you got to open those ports, which Avi leads me to a question/statement. I want to ask you, and that is, knowing this now, right? It's a one-way replication with still two-way communication going on in the background in order to establish the connection. I'm not 100% comfortable with that and opening up the ports. And again, yes, like you said earlier, you could lock down the ports to just specific IP addresses if say you had a static IP address on each side. However, I would typically try to achieve the replication over a site-to-site VPN versus using port forwarding. So my question to you is, why were we testing this in the first place? In other words, your use case obviously VPN wasn't a site-to-site, didn't seem like it was an option when we first spoke back in passing, from what I remember. So can you explain why you would you're doing it with port forwarding, a little bit more about your use case and as to why not just do a site-to-site VPN?
Yeah. So actually, I'm one of those people that would also advocate against, I repeat, against doing port forwarding at all. At all. I'm not using port forwarding. I'm trying to avoid it. Actually, I'm sometimes using Cloudflare tunnels just to avoid using port forwarding. And indeed, if I was in a situation where I could establish a site-to-site VPN, then my life would be so much easier, because then the replication is actually in real life terms, it will be sort of a LAN replication and not over internet. But in this case, I was just something that started speedballing because I had to send large amounts of data to someone that is not not an employee of mine. We are not connected in regards to networking. We're two friends working in two different cities. He offered to do something for me. In this case, it was a video edit, but taking it to a larger scale, someone needs to send someone else large amounts of data. The two sides happen to have a Synology NAS. They don't have a site-to-site VPN. And this became a challenge, right? This became a real challenge. By the way, there are also disadvantages to using the Synology Drive Sharesync, at least if you're doing it with a Quik Connect ID. You can also do it directly with port forwarding, but if you want to avoid port forwarding, you can use Quik Connect ID. But the major disadvantage is you're proxying your entire data transfer through Synology servers, and this, at least in this kind of large geographic distances like me and you, this can slow down the transfer to an almost not really feasible kind of speeds. The advantage is the sync is two-way sync. So everything you would put on your shared folder would have been copied to mine. Everything I put in mine would have been copied to yours. Whereas with Snapshot Replication, it's a one-way sync. The other folder or the destination folder would be read-only.
Right. And
So
okay, go ahead.
yeah, there are advantages and disadvantages to both products. If I really had to recalculate my route today, I would probably, I still wouldn't do a site-to-site VPN with this guy just to send some files to this guy, but I would definitely choose to do it. Maybe I still need to test it, to do it with Synology Drive Sharesync, but without Quick Connect ID. I would port forward and use limitation to my specific IP and his specific IP, and even if our IP would change, I would update the portfolio rule every time I needed to use this rule. So this is where I would recalculate and go as I see it right now.
So just to point out, talking about the Quick Connect ID, that's not supported with snapshot replication.
No, that's not an option.
So that's we couldn't even attempt that. Right? Correct.
Yeah.
Joe mentions in the chat. He mentions 0 tier with a question mark, and then did the app ever go general availability for Synology? And I think with once version 7 came out, you have to run 0 tier on a Synology in a Docker container. Whereas when it was version 6, you were able to download from the 0 tier website the specific package, and it would run, I don't want to say natively, but it would run on Synology without the requirement of a Docker container.
By the way, I'm completely a pro these kind of let's say quotes alternative solutions like Tailscale and 0 tier. These solutions will allow you to have network connectivity, so that inside this framework, Snapshot Replication and every other replication would just be, it will simulate a connection over LAN, because 0 tier will create connectivity between the source and destination. I'm completely pro these kind of solutions. They're great, but in my let's say initial process, I would think that, or at least I assumed that I didn't need to go to some sort of a third-party connectivity solution to get some data over. I thought it would be simpler than that.
Okay. Couple of comments here. Jason says, if you use your own DNS name that auto updates the IP address, that is what I use for my Synology. It works perfectly. So when my ISP changes my IP, it always updates with the DNS company. Correct. Yes. So what do you think? Let me say this. This stream ended up being what it ended up being, again, as a result of our first initial contact through the Facebook user group. But we originally thought to do the stream because we were having the issue. And we thought if we put it out there, that somebody out there would see maybe something we weren't seeing or help us come to a resolution. We weren't really planning to come to you in today's stream with the resolution. We kind of just got lucky and stumbled on that late last night. So I just did want to point that out. And then Jason said,
I think that Tony, maybe I'm subjective in the way that I see it. The very fact that two people, me and you, had to spend time and poke at it every each way, and only then come to a solution, just for me amplifies or really suggests how badly the application is either written or documented.
I think documentation is the key. When you said that, you hit it right on the nose, because in all of the documentation, at least that I read, all it said was, in general, you have to do some port forwarding. It would, if it was spelled out, you know, you got to port forward both on both sides, source and remote. We would have never had, Avi would have never had the issue to begin with. He would have never posted on the Facebook user group. We would have never done 2 previous test calls to try testing things and working things out. You know, we scratched and basically clawed at getting the solution through trial and error. So I think documentation in this case is the key, because usually with Synology, it works. I mean, right, Avi?
Yeah.
So,
And it's their complete right to do or to write code the way they want to. And if they need for us to open ports on both sides, that's up to them, and it's up to us to decide if we want to adopt this solution. But it's their obligation to document that this is something out of the ordinary. Please note that this requires something that other applications doesn't.
and Joe says, Avi is 100% right. If 2 tech guys can't figure it out, the average Joe, no pun intended, isn't going to be able to.
Exactly. And 100%. The other thing this really emphasizes to me, and I'm sure, Tony, you would agree with me, a lot of times, maybe it's something easier, maybe it's something harder. A lot of times you just can't figure it out. And if you have a resource like a community, maybe not my specific Facebook groups, maybe other communities on other social media platforms, but don't be alone with it. Share it. And most often than not, someone is going to pick up this ball that you just threw, and you might be speedballing with someone and get to a resolution. Definitely use the resource of the mass crowds.
100%. Look, the Facebook user groups have not only helped me, but I've also contributed to them as well.
Right.
And that's the whole sense of those communities. Even funnier today, when you and I spoke, you were a little hard on yourself, right?
Yeah.
And I had to remind you, like, hey, isn't this why we're doing these test calls, to work together? And next time, maybe you'll figure out something. I tell you what, I have an issue that you could figure out, maybe for me, help me. I got a video coming out next week on integrating an RTSP feed through my GrandStream PBX to call into a security camera. So I could actually set up the security camera in the GrandStream PBX, and assign it an extension and call in. So you want to do some troubleshooting? You want to return the favor?
Yeah, sure.
I got it. I got it to work on. So theoretically, GrandStream says this, and I know this is a little off topic, but we were going in the point of community and helping each other. GrandStream's claim is that if you have one of their IP phones that supports video, you'll be able to call into your camera from the video phone. You'll be able to call in from their computer desktop Wave app, and you'll be able to call in from your mobile phone's Wave app. Wave is Synology, not Synology, is GrandStream's application, right? To have meetings and do calls and stuff like that through their PBX. Now, that said, in the video, a little spoiler, in the video that's coming out next week, it works. I did it. I got it to work with the desktop Wave app. I don't have a video phone to test it that way, but I got it to work. It will not work. I can call in on my cell phone. It makes the connection to the camera, but all I get is a blank screen on the video side of things. So I've been digging to try to figure that one out, and that one's got me stumped because it works. It works through the Wave desktop app. It should work. It's not that it's being blocked by the firewall or anything like that, because if it was being blocked by the firewall or anything on the network, it wouldn't, the Wave app, the desktop app wouldn't work.
It
So
sounds like some sort of an encoding or decoding issue rather than a communication issue.
yeah, so we're gonna. That's my next thing to play with a little bit this week and get it to work.
All right, then again, I would be happy to return a favor and spend some time on it. I think that's the main. That I think should be the main takeaway. Never keep it to yourself. Someone out there, a few clicks away, can help.
100%. Okay, well, Avi, it looks like we have been going for just about 40 minutes, which is a decent length for a stream. By the way, this is Avi's first stream, folks, so hopefully get a little taste of this and he'll do it some more. And also, don't get spoiled with me. I normally don't do back-to-back weekly streams. I'm going to try to stick to my once a month schedule, but this came up after my last stream last week, and I was like, absolutely, let's do this. So, Avi, it's been a pleasure. I had fun doing the testing.
Me too. It was an extreme pleasure.
Yep. Hopefully, eventually, we can do something as a trio with Frank. Ooh, by the way, I said I would put Frank's. I put the other YouTubers in the stream. Let me just get Frank's channel, because his channel is phenomenal.
If you guys don't know Frank, he has a YouTube channel called Wonder Tech.
Yeah,
he does a lot of Synology stuff and a lot of technical stuff. Again, we have become friends. We see each other as friends and not competitors, which means the world to me. And definitely go check out his channel.
Well, Practical IT with Jeremy Leek just joined. Let me get Jeremy. I don't know if you're familiar with Jeremy's channel at all. He does a lot of Linux stuff, Avi.
I am familiar with it.
Practical IT. Jeremy, thanks for joining. Let me find you and get you in there. There we are. Oops. Hold on 1 second. What happened? There we go.
Let me just take the time to answer another thing I saw in the chat. One thing that really annoys me, I'm using, by the way, for networking, I'm using the Unify ecosystem, firewall, switches, access points, etc. And what really pisses me off in Unify, which I generally love the ecosystem, when you want to do port forwarding, for example, you might think that it will be very logical to do port forwarding if you want to be specific or limit the port forward to a dynamic DNS string. That would be great because the IP would change and you wouldn't have to worry about it. For some reason, and I don't know why, I actually contacted them and didn't get a reply. In Unify, if you want to do a port forwarding that is not open to everyone and you click on the limit, you can't enter anything else than an IP address. It wouldn't accept a dynamic DNS string or an FQDN or a subnet, like if you want to 10.10 slash something, it wouldn't take. Only an IP address in port forwarding. Pisses me off completely.
I wasn't aware of that. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing. What version of the controller?
I'm using a UDM Pro. And I'm in the controller version, I think it's 7.1.66, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, but it's been that way forever.
Okay. Wow. Good to know. I didn't know that. So see, there you go. Thank you. Yeah. I mean, that's all I have. And I had a good time. I'm glad we did do this. Appreciate it.
Yeah. Definitely it was a great fun for me.
I hope to see you live streaming on your own soon.
Maybe.
So, all right. With that, now remember, Avi, we've got to hit the end button, right?
Yeah, right.
So with that, I want to thank everybody for being here on both channels. And as I say in every video. Avi, do you want to add anything before I do my final close?
Again, I would like to thank you for spending this time with me, for taking this journey with me. And I would like to invite everyone to join our Facebook groups for Synology community and Unify community. And even if you don't, if you have an issue, share it. That's the main takeaway.
Excellent. Yes, join those Facebook groups. They are awesome. Avi, appreciate you taking the time to admin them and monitor them and be as active as you are in them. So, all right. Again, everybody, thanks for spending the time with us on this Saturday. Those of you in the United States who observe the Memorial Day weekend, stay safe and be healthy out there. Don't do anything to put yourself in any kind of danger. Enjoy the weekend. And as I say at the end of every video, we'll see you all in the next video.
Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye. Okay.